Last year, for private fishermen, the red snapper season was 9 days long. This year, it will start Thursday, June 1st, and end 1 minute after midnight on Sunday, June 4th. That's just 3 full days of fishing. An overreach of federal government. That's how Escambia County Commissioner Doug Underhill is describing NOAA's decision. Underhill blames the shortened season on a flawed science.
The federal government measures the snapper population nationwide and then makes decisions about how we should fish in the Gulf based on that.
I wanted to tell my peers about a conversation I had with Congressman Gaetz, and I can assure you, Mr. Price, when you were talking about, we're at the mercy of Congress. This board does not have the authority to do to actually give relief. That is going to take an act of Congress. It's an act of Congress that got us here. But I can assure you with absolute certainty, Matt Gaetz gets it. We started off this conversation talking like a couple of politicians, talking about policy and whatnot. By the end of that phone call, we were cussing like a couple of fishermen.
Ladies and commissioners, Larry Huntley, 7214 Wymart Road, Pensacola. And I was reading an article about the commission, and I'm going to look at the agenda, recommendation concerning resolution, eliminate overreaching federal regulations concerning fishing seasons in the Gulf of Mexico. And I guess what came to my mind was there is so much controversy about fishing regulations, not just on the Gulf but nationwide. But how did you arrive at this? That in fact you want to put together a resolution, and the way I think I understand it is it'll go to Commerce, and the idea would be extend the federal season. I think everybody's complaining about the 3-day.
I put this item on the agenda because the bottom line is that the federal management of the fisheries nationwide is done on a nationwide basis, and the reality is that rules and data sets from Alaska should have no bearing in decision making about how well the access that the citizens have to the federal fishery in the Gulf of Mexico. As it stands right now, it does. The science, the pseudoscience really that goes into how that fisheries, how the national fisheries are managed, are being done so to the detriment of the citizens and to the detriment of our economy here in Escambia County. The purpose of that action that's coming before us tonight is for this board to simply state to our national level, federal level delegation, the impact that it's having on our economy here, and asking them to grant us relief for the longer season this year, but also to take a step back and put real science behind the rules and the regulations that the federal government has on the fishery. Commissioner Bergosh, you wanted to weigh in?
Larry, and yes, I'll weigh in as well. I was contacted by the owner of a bait and tackle shop locally here, and he's got a coalition of folks. And, when you go from what we used to have down to 9 days in federal waters for snapper season last year, which was bad enough, then down to 3 days, it's a problem. Especially if the weather's bad. I mean, the weather's bad, and then suddenly you can't get out at all. And meanwhile, the charter for hire captains get, 50, 60, 70 days. The commercial guys get what they get, and the average citizen who has a boat and maybe wants to go out, he's the one who is prevented access from a public resource. So I agree with what Commissioner Underhill says about, the lack of science. There's no one diving these reefs to count the number of fish. There is no science behind it. When you go out fishing, I've been out many times when the season's closed, and you have to throw them back, and then they die, and then other fish come and eat them, and it's just a very frustrating thing. And I think we need to speak with one voice from Escambia County and say the recreational fishermen and the industries that support them need to have their voice heard. This isn't the cod stock up in New England. There's no problem catching gigantic toad snappers out there. They're out there. Doug knows, he goes fishing. I mean, you catch them all the time, and it's a shame to catch them. And you got to throw them back because there's only a 3-day season in federal waters. So it's a frustrating situation, and I certainly hope that we'll have a unanimous vote on that tonight. I certainly intend to support it.
Thanks, sir. You have 2 minutes and 40 seconds left if you wish to speak.
Thank you. But see, that's where I'm concerned, and I don't profess to be an expert, let me assure you that, but I am concerned about the fishery. There are 8 councils that manage the fisheries in the United States under the Magnuson Act, and the Gulf Council is not the same as the council on the Pacific Coast or the Northwest or on the East Coast. It's different. They manage the fisheries, and The council is made up of 17 voting members. One is a federal member, Dr. Crabtree, who's the administrator. The 16 other members are appointed by state governors. And everybody has the opportunity, a bait and tackle shop owner, doesn't matter, can go and speak to the council. They can write. They encourage that constantly. And they have a representative on the council. What I'm concerned about is what some people are missing is the science. The Magnuson Act says that you will use the best available science. And I'm concerned that it's becoming political, that it has to do with I'm throwing too many back. Well, there's a reason for that. And gentlemen, what I would encourage you to do before you put this out is maybe to speak to some fishery management. Maybe you have. Maybe you've invited them in. But you need to speak to some fisheries management people and then certainly make your mind up. But the reason the season is 3 days is the average number of days in the Gulf of Mexico for 2017 is 189. Florida has 78 days in state waters. Texas is 365 days. Louisiana is like 300 and something plus days. Also, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi have extended their state waters to 9 miles. They also overfished their quota last year by 125%. If we don't, I've been here since '68, and we couldn't catch snapper. Couldn't really catch them in the '80s. We only had 5 million pounds. Go to 2008. 5 million pounds were allocated for the commercial and recreational sectors in 2008. Today, 14 million pounds are allocated. That's how much progress we've made in the fishery management business. And we've got to base this on science. It can't be based on, I caught a lot of fish, therefore there must be a lot of fish. That's called faith-based. And that's why we've had problems. And what I don't want to see is us to get back to where we were, which I've seen from '68 to now, to where there are no red snapper. And that can happen if politics is what drives the decision making. It's got to be based on science. And I would just encourage you folks, regardless of what you end up doing, be sure you have all the information. The fishery science people are glad to talk to you. We've got them at the University of West Florida. It doesn't have to be from the Gulf Council. But the thing that really I have a problem with is there's so much misinformation out there, and if you put out information that may not be correct, people tend to believe you, and it just makes it that much more difficult to manage a fishery. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, so much for taking the time to listen.
Thank you for your time, sir. Commissioner Bergosh?
I was just going to say as a final note, if there's too many fish being taken, let's rebalance it and give more to the recreational anglers, and 'cause 3 days is not enough. If there's too much, let's pull some back from the commercial guys, right? I want recreational anglers to have more of a shot.
Can I just make one comment real quick to that? The thing that we need to understand...
Yes, sir. Come on. Back up. You come back to the microphone, if you would, please.
See, that's... Recreational fishermen in Florida make up 12%. There's 88% of Floridians who do not fish. And guess who they depend on for their access to probably, if you think about it being federally managed, the fish belong to all of us. 88% of Floridians depend on the commercial guy to get the fish to the table. 97% of the citizens of the United States depend on commercial guy. And the recreational numbers in Florida are... and fishing red snapper is minute. It probably should, they get half the quota now. They probably should get much less than that, really, instead of more, because they're taken away from, and the public needs to understand this. When you go to peg legs, you like a fresh catch of the day. And if recreational gets more, you'll only get it if you go out there and catch it yourself, because they can't sell it. It has to come from commercial. Again, gentlemen, thank y'all.
And if you want to know why we don't trust the science, sir, it's because of statistics just like that. 88% of Floridians have to count on that person for red snapper. The lion's share of Floridians don't even want to don't buy red snapper. A small portion do, and yes, those who do want to eat snapper but don't have a boat, yes, they have to count on the other. See, that's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. I can make statistics say anything I want them to. Those kind of statistics are the statistics that men use to deny other men the liberty that comes with being an American and access to American resources. I'm done talking about it.
Last question. Just a comment. Could you tell me how they do the science? How they?
I told you last word. I will give you a last statement, but no, I will not speak to the subject again until it comes to the agenda tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, if the weather is, I hope it's either perfect on those 3 days or that it's absolutely horrible. Because if it's anywhere in between, people are going to take risks that they wouldn't otherwise take because they have no second choice. and they're going to go ahead and start to make those worst decisions and maybe get out there in a boat that's not suitable for the trip. When you are passing laws that are creating that kind of decision making, then you're not doing good government, and I think that the congressman gets it. Gentlemen, the purpose of the letter really is nothing more, and I say this because I don't want to set expectations high. You know, Commissioner Underhill isn't going out there and charging a windmill. You know, that's not what's happening here. What we are doing is trying to put additional ammunition in the gun for Congressman Gaetz to fight the fight where it needs to be fought, and that's on Capitol Hill. Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chair, you still need to pass it, I guess. Yeah, I don't think.
If you didn't have a
I'm sorry,
comment,
I saw that your light was on. I'm sorry.
I move the item A through C.
I'll second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Please vote. Item passes 4-0 with Commissioner Robinson off the dais. Mr. Administrator.
Car 3.